All right, in this next video demonstration, we are going to go on a NTFS permissions adventure. It's going to be quite interesting, a lot of things that we are going to do. So I'm on server C right now, and I'm going to go in to the root of server C through computer, Windows Explorer here, and let's open up C drive. And I'm going to make a brand new folder, and we're going to call this folder Centipede. Not centipede, but centipede. Let's try that again. And inside the centipede folder, I'm going to make a new folder, and we're going to call this experiments. And then we're going to go inside the experiments folder. We're going to make another new folder inside that called patients. So we've got this subfolder thing going on here. So here's the root of the C drive, and then we created a centipede folder in the root of the C drive, and then we made a subfolder in the centipede folder called experiments, and then inside the experiments folder we made another subfolder called patients. Okay, what we're going to do now is go back to the centipede folder and look at the NTFS permissions, the access control list. So we're going to right click on that folder, go to properties, go to the security tab. Again, the security tab is what holds all of our access control list objects and what they can do with it. So for example, what can administrators do with this resource? You notice that all the boxes are grayed out. That lets us know that it is inheriting the permissions from the parent, and the centipede folder's parent is the C drive. And what we want to do is we want to make some modifications to those permissions, and so we're going to remove permissions inheritance. And even, what if we say we did not remove permissions inheritance? So we wanted to get rid of the administrators group off the list. Notice if we say remove, it says, hey, you can't do this because it's inheriting permissions. So what we want to do is get in here on the advanced button and click change permissions, and we want to uncheck the box to include inheritable permissions, and we want to remove those permissions entirely. So we want to start off with kind of like a blank ACL. Nothing's there. No one can gain access to it right now because no one's on the ACL. And so we're going to set some permissions up. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's edit that, and let's add in the laboratory group. Let's do that. Let's do a little lab. And notice I'm just typing labor right now. I'm going to do check names to save myself a little bit of typing and say OK. And on the laboratory group, we want to give those folks full control. Now we also want to add another group. Let's add in patients and give patients, we just want to give them read-only permission. And let's now add in another group. Let's add in domain admins. And we want to give domain admins full control. And let's apply that. So now you see here we have the laboratory group has full control. Patients only have read-only, and domain admins have been given full control. So let's say OK and OK again. So with permissions inheritance, what that simply means is that those permissions that we just set up on the parent centipede folder are going to flow down to the experiments folder and flow down even further into the patients folder. And we can even see that if we right click on the patients folder, go to properties, security tab, those same permissions are there from what we set on the parent, and we see that they are dimmed out, showing that they are inheriting permissions from those parents. Next thing we want to do is log in as Dr. Hyder. So I'm going to log off of server C as my administrator, and we're going to log in as Dr. Hyder. So let me switch users here, other user, and I think he was J. Hyder. Password. So we're going to go back into that centipede folder now. And inside the centipede folder, we're going to go to the experiments folder. And we're going to set it so only Dr. Hyder has full control, only him. So let's go to properties, security tab. And again, we're inheriting these permissions from the centipede folder. So we're going to have to stop permissions inheritance by clicking on advanced, change permissions, uncheck the box, and again, let's remove everybody off the list, and let's now add in just Mr. Hyder, Dr. Hyder here, and we're only going to give him full control. So he's pretty much taken over this experiments folder. And in doing so, because experiments is the parent of patients, we'll also notice that the patients folder has the same settings inherited from its parent being the experiments folder. So that's kind of interesting. The next thing we want to do is we want to go inside this experiments folder. So experiments folder, and we want to make a new text document. And we're going to call this new text document Human Millipede. And notice how it's already a text document. We're not showing the dot text, and the reason why is because those former settings we did in a previous lab about showing the file extensions were only for those users that we were logged in as. So what I can do is I can hit the Alt key just so I can make sure this is a text document. Go to Tools, Folder Options, View, and let's set these settings up so we can see the file extensions and take off this sharing wizard as well. So now we can see that it is human millipede.txt. And we're going to open up this human millipede.txt file, and we're going to put in some text here. Avoid vans with no windows. Always good advice to do. And so we're going to go ahead and close that out, and we want to save it, save the file. The next thing we want to do is log back in to server C as the domain admin. So let's go ahead and log off server C again, and we're going to log back in as our domain admin. So let's switch user, and let's do administrator because he is a domain admin. Oh. Hopefully you did step number 8 too. I'm going to make sure everybody does that in the lab. Alright, so we're logging in as the domain admin, and we want to try to read the contents of Dr. Hyder's human millipede.txt file. So let's go in here. Here's our Centipede folder, and here's our experiments folder. And ooh, we're getting a access is denied to this resource. We're going to say continue though, and see what happens here. Oh, we're getting access denied. Again, the reason why we're getting access denied because we know that Dr. Hyder completely took over this experiments folder, and only he is the one who has the access to read that file. Now listen, I do say I want you to read the contents of the file. So what we would have to do is go in here and make some modifications to this folder. So let's go into properties and security, and notice if when I say continue, it's going to say, hey, do you want to be an administrator? What it's telling me is that I have to take ownership of this. So it's going to take me right into the ownership tab, and I'm going to click administrator and apply. So now that I'm the owner of it, remember, now that I'm the owner, I can actually modify the permissions. So I'm going to say OK and OK. So I'm going to get out, come back in, and you'll see that now that I'm the owner, hey, I can go in here and make modifications. So let's edit this, and I'm going to add in the domain admins, because that's who I am, group. So I'll now have access to that. I'm going to give myself full control. Say apply. Yes, I want to go ahead and put that on all of it. And now I can see the human millipedes.txt. Can I? No, why not? I'll tell you what I missed, and I'll go back to it here in just a second. Let me show you what I missed here on this. On the experiments folder, on the tab for the permissions for this, if I go into the advanced, notice how it says replace all child objects permissions. That's something that I did not do on that, and I should have done. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And what that does is kind of pushes that down to all the other files inside those folders. So I'm still getting access to it. I should have done it on the front end, but that's okay. I'm going to go in and manually go into this human millipede.txt file, do the same thing that I did with the folder of experiments, say security, continue, again, take ownership of that, apply it. So now I'm the owner. Say OK. Say OK. Now that I'm the owner, I can go in and go to properties, security tab, and now I can edit this and add in my domain admins group. give myself full control, and say OK. And now I'll be able to gain access and read the file. So a little bit more of a process than I expected to do, but hey, I'm reading the file, and that gives us some good experience on knowing that we have to take ownership of resources that we don't have the ability to read. And once we're the owner, now we can go in and make modifications to the permission or to the file, so we can now read it. The next thing we want to do is give Lindsay the ability to take ownership of the patient's folder. So let's right-click on the patient's folder and go to Properties. Go to the Security tab to look at the ACL. And again, I'm going to have to go in here and take ownership of it. So I can go in here and manipulate some of the permissions myself. Now I can see this. Now remember, what we're doing is we're just giving Lindsay the ability to take ownership. We're not going to give her ownership. So let's go in here to the advanced and do change permissions. And we want to add in Lindsay. And we're just going to give her that one permission, very simply, to take ownership. Again, we're not giving her ownership. We're just giving the ability to take ownership. So we're just going to check the box for Lindsay and say OK, and OK again. And in fact, if you notice on Lindsay's username, object name here on the Security tab, it doesn't even show anything except for this checkbox for special permissions. And to actually see what she has, we need to go in here to Advanced and then click on her name and do Change Permissions, and then edit and see that, oh, she just has this one special permission to take ownership. So right now, if Lindsay tried to gain access to this folder, she would not be able to gain access to it because she just has the ability not to read anything or see anything in it, but just to take ownership of the resource if she needed to. We also, in this lab, want to give Tom the ability to change permissions on that human millipede.txt file. So let's go to the properties of the human millipede.txt file, Security tab, and let's edit this, and let's add in Tom. See if we can find him. Here's Tom6. And again, we're just going to give him some special permissions, okay? In fact, I'm going to go ahead and say OK, and say OK again and do Advanced, just so I can click on Tom here and change his permissions and edit his permissions. And we want to clear everything out and just give him the change permissions capability. Again, he's not going to be able to open, read, do anything with this document, but in the event that we want him to have the ability to change permissions, he will, because we've checked this box, and now he can go in there and change the permissions on the human millipede.txt file. The next thing we want to do is we are going to log in as Tom. So we're going to click on Start. We're going to log off. And we're going to Control Delete, switch user. Other user is going to be T6. Give that just a moment to let him log in here. All right, and we're logged in now as Tom. And we're going to open up a command prompt. And all I had you do was just simply type the name of the command line tool for modifying permissions, NTFS permissions, as if you were going to do it for the human millipede.txt file. I don't have you do anything with it. I just want to make sure that you understand that iCackles is the name of the command line tool for modifying files or NTFS permissions like the human millipede.txt file. Make sure you are familiar with this command line tool. You can do a little question mark here to see some of the syntax that's associated with it. There's a lot to it. Again, I don't have any expectation of you knowing all the command line switches and every one of these capabilities, but again, have a familiarity with iCackles and know that it is the command line tool utilized for modifying NTFS permissions from a command line interface. The last thing I wanted you to do for this lab is just simply log off and log back in as the domain administrator. So we're going to log back in as the domain admin. That's all we need to do for this portion of the lab.